UNE North is the Institute of North Atlantic Studies at the University of New England. One of the reasons we're able to do this work is because of the fabulous advisors that we have here today to share some insights about their career paths. I'm going to show you a video from one of our colleagues who couldn't be here today, but was kind enough to actually record a talk, Dana Eidsness from Monado, who really is one of the reasons why we're all here together in this space.
I am Dana Eidsness. I'm director of the Maine North Atlantic Development Office at Maine International Trade Center. And I have one of the coolest jobs in the state. My role here for the state of Maine is to work towards increasing trade, investment, and collaborative activity between the state of Maine and places throughout the Arctic region, Northern Europe, Atlantic Canada, Greenland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, all the cold places, but very beautiful and wonderful places, and do things like organize trade and study missions to bring Maine businesses and academics and institutions over to these markets to meet their counterparts or to do business or establish working relationships, joint R&D, that sort of thing. There is an element of what I do that's in writing in my job description that says that the person in my role will work to insert Maine into conversations regarding the future of the Arctic. Eimskip, the Icelandic shipping company, is making this possible for us. We have always done business with this part of the world, but now we have this tangible shipping activity every week that's connecting us to communities in these places. So really there is a responsibility in all of that as the state of Maine to be part of the conversations about what is happening in the Arctic. You know, how do we mitigate climate change? How do we adapt to climate change if needed? And, you know, what strengths does Maine have to bring to these very dire issues that are coming out of Arctic change? So it's exciting work. It's different every day, and I like that about it. I was asked to talk a little bit about what inspires me in my work, and I guess for me, the bottom line and the purpose of it all is just the opportunity to make a difference. Yes, it's exciting to work in different parts of the world. I love the people I work with. I meet some of the most intelligent, interesting people in the world, the greatest minds in environmental issues and whatnot, and that is a very big part of it. But knowing that what I do here in Maine can impact my community here and communities throughout this region I'm working in, by being really the conduit that brings the right minds together to come up with a solution, that excites me. I was asked to talk a little bit about a point in my career where I had to choose or pivot to something new. I think you could name a job, and I've probably done it. I've been working full-time since I was 14 years old. So I worked a lot of gigs to get to where I am now. And there were a lot of pivots along the way. While I did in my early years work in import-export management in the manufacturing sector, you know, before that I had done things like cooking professionally in restaurants. I did maintenance on a fleet of vehicles. So I was a mechanic. I was even a firefighter at one point. So there were a lot of pivots along the way. But what never changed was kind of the vision I had for wanting to eventually work in an international space. I think that idea had been with me since I was in high school. So what impact do I hope that my work will have on my community and environment? Well, knowing that I have the opportunity to make a difference, and where, you know, we're looking at a global issue like climate change right now, and I can't think of a more important issue right now, knowing that what I do can bring together people and ideas and materials and solutions that can help us get through this. That is really the most important thing to me. So I would say that in terms of the impact that I want to have on my community and environment through this work, it would be kind of that thread of sustainability. I would say there's pretty much nothing I do in this role now that doesn't have a little bit of that sustainability flavor to it, whether it's working with Holly Parker at UNE on, bringing the UN Sustainable Development Goals to Maine and making sure that Maine companies and institutions understand what they are. That's the kind of work that's going to keep Maine businesses in the game and competitive internationally and better global citizens. So I feel really good about that work, and it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to work with UNE on some of those important issues. So those were all the questions. If I could leave you with one piece of advice, this is one that I give my kids, and that is, if there is someone in your life who brings out the best in you in a mentor situation or someone you admire, keep that person in your life forever. Never lose them and keep coming back to them. You'll do each other a whole world of good, and you'll learn a lot. So I hope tonight is wonderful. Again, I'm very sorry I can't be there in person, but I know you'll have a wonderful conversation. Take care, and thank you for this opportunity.
I will hand it over to you, John, and then we'll come down to Brenda and go right around the row.
Well, hopefully at this point in my career, I'm near retirement, but I'm not. So I'm currently the CEO of the Mississippi State Port Authority. We're located in Gulfport, Mississippi, on the beautiful Gulf Coast. We operate a $1 billion asset. It's an international port. We primarily receive bananas. We're the second largest importer of green fruit in the United States. So if you took one of our customers, Dole, we have both Dole and Chiquita here, if you took their bananas and lined them up tip to end, you would circumnavigate the globe 26 times just in 1 year of imports. So
That's a lot of banana bread. It's the end one is
The end one's gonna be really rotten.
It is, and we reach all the way up to Chicago, going north and to the east and the west for both of our customers. We're a diversified operation. We also import raw product for a DuPont facility. We're currently have vessels down unloading wood from Brazil. And we do military moves. We're one of 17 strategic seaports. So we move military equipment from here all around the world. We also have a blue economy focus. We have the other USM, the University of Southern Mississippi, located on our terminal. And they have a specialization in marine technology and specifically in autonomous maritime vehicles. So several of our tenants currently are manufacturing underwater drones. And those are for defense research and industrial applications. And then finally on terminal, we actually have a casino as a tenant. I believe we're the only port authority with a casino, but it's something I'd recommend for any port authority out there.
Thanks, John. Brenda, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Brenda Karen, and I am a recovering marketing communications specialist. I started my career right out of Bates College, working for public broadcasting, and subsequently went to Syracuse and got a master's from the Newhouse School. I have been engaged over nearly 40 years in a wide range of marketing communications activities. However, I have found since I sold my business in July of last year that I've had some terrific opportunities to do the sort of work that I have found in my career to be the most rewarding and interesting around the notion of economic development and the blue economy. So I've worked for virtually every branded seafood product that is in Maine, and have since that time and subsequently represented a lot of organizations that actively pursue very difficult to obtain permits, especially in energy and in aquaculture right now. And one of the insights that I am really grateful to have is to have been able to combine some study in law, a lot of work in public policy, and a fair amount of work as honorary consul of Canada, a job I was lucky enough to have for about 8 years, working around all manner of international as well as domestic issues of permitting, licensing, international collaboration, and so forth. So that's kind of what I've done. And I'm now kind of quasi-retired, which means I don't work 80 hours a week. I only work 50, which is awesome. I love it. And the one piece of insight that I am most grateful for is having run an ad agency for a long, long time and having made 858 payrolls that amounted to about $85 million in 40 years, that I'm very grateful to have only one person on the payroll.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks. That was a relief.
Hi, I'm Sarah Emily Colby. This is my husband Keelan Colby, and we're married but also business partners. We started Colby Film Engineering about 14 years ago. We offer architecture and engineering, civil, structural, mechanical, electrical, fire protections. We design buildings and we do facilities engineering. We work for a lot of different clients throughout New England, but we do have a marine focus. We work for the Coast Guard, Navy, for Bath Iron Works. We were fortunate enough to work with John when he was up here at the Maine Port Authority. I'm also a Mississippian. I've spent the first 18 years of my life in Mississippi, so I'm a little jealous that he's down there. It's the best time of the year, as I've been telling him. So it's just been a joy to be part of UNE North. And Kaylin and I also spent a fair amount of time in Iceland just for fun, also in Tromsø just for fun, which is sort of how we got connected with this group. We like to go backcountry skiing, and so we spent a lot of time in the Arctic doing that. And we're excited to see what y'all do.
Yeah, what she said. My name's Kalen Colby. I started off as a civil structural engineer, got my master's in engineering at the University of Maine. Worked in power for about 15 years, then worked in the paper industry, and then got into building design and the marine waterfront and industrial engineering. Excuse me. Tremendous opportunities. We've had a lot of fun. We started in May of 2008, just in time for the economy to crash. Worked our way through that, and we have 60 to 65 people right now. And again, just managing challenges every day. The blue economy and the marine, the piers and wharfs is such an exciting part. There are so many facets to it. Whether you're building, we've done nuclear defueling and refueling for the Navy. And there's a 7-building complex where the first two buildings, when the sub comes into a dry dock, are actually set on top of the submarine. So it's really fun design, all the way to working on permitting for just dredging out and doing responsible, helping permit for responsible dredging. So you're not just taking a lot of and putting a lot of silt into the water. So yeah, it's an amazing variety. Every day is different. It's a lot of fun.
Wonderful.
One page.
Glenn Page, President and CEO of Sustainametrics. John, great to see you. We miss you. Yeah, so we live in Portland, Maine. My partner Jane, business partner, but also she at UNE North as well. And just to say, we work with folks all over the world to basically help navigate into the world that's emerging. You guys know it, it's changing rapidly. How do we respond is the massive question. And we wrestle with that in many different ways. I cut my teeth in restoration ecology. So I began my career trying to figure out how we restore sand dunes, salt marshes, rivers, streams, eelgrass beds, and still focus on that, but looking now at all sorts of issues of how do communities see together the challenges they're facing, and ultimately, what does that seeing do? A lot of the work is around issues of governance, power, both the obvious expressed power, but also the shadow forces at work. And trying to understand how to see that, because I don't care where you are on the planet, the governance system is not ready for the kind of changes that are coming. And so that's a lot of the work we do. So Holly, it's really wonderful that you convened this. So
No, this is great.
congratulations.
And
And are you going to introduce yourself with
well,
in
yes,
your background?
okay, yeah, let me get to back here. Okay. So I'm not just a voice crying out in the wilderness over there. So, hi. So I'm Holly Parker. I'm the director of UNE North, and I'm so inspired by these 5 people every day. I'm inspired by my friends out here who become my new friends here at UNE as we start to work more with students. With Jane, I think it's the people that drive this work, and it's so important for Maine. We all know each other here in the state. It's pretty hard not to know each other. And so making those meaningful connections and building those relationships is really a core part of the work that we do at UNE North. So that when we see a problem together, we can really tackle it. And we have that trust and that social contract with each other to do that work together. And so that's the work I'm trying to do with pizza and policy, and kind of start thinking about that and the other programs we've been doing at UNE North. I would love to hear from you guys, but I would also love to hear from the 3 of you about what is inspiring you in your work as students and where do you want to go with that? So I guess I would throw that open to maybe who would like to take a first swing about what inspires you to think about the problems you want to solve in this world. Yeah.
Well, I've been engaged in the commercial sector, selling stuff to people my entire career. And that, on the face of it, has a certain follow the money personality. However, I will say to you, it became evident to me pretty early on that one of the reasons that what I do in my world of art and science and music and words is I feel as if commerce is one of the major lubricants and stabilizing factors in a civil society. And when our work makes it possible for families to put food on the table, to buy automobiles, to send their kids to college, and to create a harmonious sense of place and of peace, I think we find ourselves in a better place culturally. So for me, the work of my work, whether it has been in representing companies that make milk or helping aquaculture facilities to figure out how to get permitted, it provides meaningful jobs and meaningful output and economic growth that is, to me, the very major part of what makes for a safe and stable world. So that's me.
And John, I wonder if you want to follow up on that, because commerce and transportation being so inextricably linked, the role of transportation is so crucial in our world. What inspires you in that challenging work? It's not just about logistics, it's about people, and it's about bringing people the things they need in life.
Providing a better life for other people is certainly one of the more rewarding things. We just picked up a book of business importing lumber from Brazil. And that's what's called break bulk business. It turns out it's very labor intense, involves, guys and gals moving stuff with cranes, but then moving it around with forklifts. And we're expecting to have about 20 to 25,000 man hours working these vessels on this new line of business over the next year. Those jobs are union jobs here and anywhere that really that's working a port. But our ILA, our local union, is 100% from minority neighborhoods. And so these are jobs that are great paying. They're making $25 an hour with full benefits, with a bonus at the end of the year if they hit their targets, and going into neighborhoods where that kind of money, it would mean a lot anywhere in Maine, but it especially means a lot there and is life changing, and that's exciting. I think beyond that, just having challenges day in and day out, and particularly multi-layered ones, where you have political issues, you have business issues, but you also might have legal issues all rolled up into one single effort. And it's kind of like, on a good day, feels like playing 3-dimensional chess. but I'm flattering myself. Most of the time it's whack-a-mole and just trying to make the best decision you can at any given point. But I'd say thirdly, the thing I really enjoy is the international connection, to get yourself out of a particular comfort zone and plunk yourself down where it's just challenging to maybe do little things, always excites me. So
it's interesting. I mean, what I'm hearing from Dana and Brenda and you, John, is this idea. I'm hearing the sustainable development goals percolate up. We are talking about strong economies. We are talking about good jobs for people, right? It is about community and economic and environmental health. And how do we see the world, to Glenn's point, that we start seeing that interconnectivity and recognizing we can make choices that enable all three. I also hear a real enthusiasm for complexity and appreciation for complexity. And I wonder if Kayla and Sarah, Emily, and Glenn, you might want to talk about the role of complexity as kind of something that you enjoy, see and enjoy.
Absolutely. Some of the work we do is incredibly complex, as Galen was talking about with the nuclear refueling. We do a lot of work for about ironworks, for the Coast Guard, for the Army Corps of Engineers. And Kayla and I have always had a good yin and yang. He really manages the design work that goes out of the office, and I really manage the operations. And so when I think about what inspires me and what motivates me, it's that first and foremost, architects and engineers are responsible for public safety. The buildings that they put up, you trust when you walk in here, this building isn't going to fall down on you. And it takes a lot of work, to put something together that meets codes and will be useful for you. And so we want to make sure that our architects and engineers are spending all of their time getting their designs out. They're not worried about their paychecks or their benefits or their comfort at the office, all the little things that can really add up. And so I love my role of making things seamless, and no one ever worries about those things, hopefully on a good day, and that they're really just focused on the thing they really enjoy doing, which is good design. There are lots of things that go on behind the scenes, but hopefully they never really see them. And we do, I guess maybe the last 4 years, we've done best places to work in Maine. We've been fortunate to be in the top 10 every time. So I feel like that is starting to bear some fruit. And then growing from 2 people to 60 people in 14 years, there's been a lot to figure out along the way. But employee satisfaction, and to Brenda's point, there's really a lot to be said for creating a safe, positive place for people to work and build their careers.
I guess Sarah actually mentioned that it's good design. That's really what inspires me as an engineer. I'm a civil structural engineer, so building these big rugged things. And what's cool about my job is we work in a world where in design, the codes change all the time. They're getting better. Believe it or not, the actual snow load in the code, the most recent version of the code, the snow load went down, which was really a bummer if you love skiing. But it helped a lot of buildings not be able to take some extra load, which was great. So the codes change all the time. Materials and construction. When I first moved to Maine, there were no metal studs. There were no epoxies or any of that stuff, and it was all very traditional wood framed or steel framed stuff. But today, I mean, there are literally thousands of materials coming out every year. New carpets, new flooring, new desk coverings. And one of the coolest parts of our job is to go through and filter those through. Are they made with sustainable lumber? Are they shipped a long distance? Do they give off VOCs? Do they really last? It may be a sustainable material that was used, but the process to make them into something that we use could be horrific. And we do all that homework. So that's a really cool part. And the next is the means and methods of construction is how something gets put up. You can have the best design, but if it costs 3 to 5 times what a normal building should be to construct because you designed it improperly, you can do a lot of damage to the environment. You can cost a lot of time and energy. You can do things badly there too. So really good design. And Sarah mentioned the teamwork piece. So on a building like the one we're in, you have civil, structural, mechanical, electrical, fire protection, architecture, all teams. And we have a saying in the office is that when one of those people makes a decision, it affects a minimum of 4 other disciplines. And so every decision you make, you have to check with minimum of 4 other people. And so our jobs are all day collaborating and saying, hey, I want to do this and move this over here. And somebody's like, okay, you just saved yourself $15,000, but you just cost 3 other people $45,000. Like, no, they're gonna need other guy. It's that kind of fun in the day. And then when you really nail it and the bids come in low, the construction is just seamless from one trade to the next. And then you design a building that lasts a long, long time. Last point for me is on the sustainability piece. Sarah Emily mentioned, we do a lot of facilities engineering, and everybody thinks, oh my God, that must be the most boring job on the planet. And yet it's one of the most exciting jobs on the planet, because our jobs as facilities engineer, and we do this for $2 billion corporations all the way down to little mom and pop shops, is keeping things going. Sometimes the best sustainability is to just make something last throughout its entire design life. It may not be the most efficient pump, but what if you had to have a whole new pump made, a whole new pump manufactured, shipped, installed, and then you've got the junk of the old one to take care of, versus just keeping this thing running for another 5 to 10 years, provided all those things, you've done the math on it. And facilities engineering is just a dream come true, because 24/7, we keep our clients' facilities running. Stuff's breaking all the time. There's limited budget, and you got to be looking at this new technology coming down the road. Super quick story. We're working for a state park, and they had just thought they'd done a really great thing. They invested in special composting toilets that had a special bio thing in it. And 18 months after they bought 40 of them, the company went out of business, and they couldn't buy the bio thing filter in it anymore. And they went from being super sustainable to being super in trouble. And so again, being a facilities engineer, looking at these new technologies and saying, oh wow, should we apply that now? Should we wait a few years and wait for it to be proven? So yeah, I love my jobs.
Very, very.
I love your job.
One page.
Wow. Inspiration. I think one of the best indicators for me is when I wake up in the morning, I want to get out of bed and actually get going. This morning, I'll just give you just today. 4 a.m., 4:30 or something, rolled out of bed and just said, all right, got a whole bunch of incredible things to do, including this. Got on a bike, rode across Portland, and went into the New England Ocean Cluster, which that just alone as a place for work. Think about where jobs that you take and the inspiration of waking up and going to a place that really inspires you. And it's going to take time, but know that wherever you are, it's the connections that you make. It's all in relationships. And so one of the brilliant things about the New England Ocean Cluster, it's all focused on the blue economy, it's relationships. And so the more you connect and the more you relate, it just matters. But no one was there when I got there, and that's typically the case. But what I was doing this morning was going through a whole lot of photos from a recent learning journey we led in Costa Rica. And Costa Rica is one of the most impressive countries on the planet in that it has about 4% of the world's biodiversity and no national army, and some of the best healthcare on the planet because no national army. And they've got huge border issues and no national army. So it's a really interesting model, and something like 30% of their land is dedicated national parks and huge issues. And a good friend of mine from Costa Rica, who's no longer with us, but he used to say, it's all about conserving biodiversity on a full stomach. And that says it all. And that's the kind of issues that they're facing. And so the learning journey and engaging and putting together this into a GIS story map is really important. In fact, we're working with a group at HWAS. Am I saying that right?
HOAS.
HOAS.
Health, Wellness, and Occupational Studies.
And we have a team of 3 interns working on the case study of Costa Rica in their national healthcare program, which went from a life expectancy of roughly in the low 40s to surpassing US life expectancy in just about 30 years. So, and one of the reasons why they've done it is they linked public health and primary care together in a really systemic, exciting way. Then I was on a call with a guy who was working at the World Bank, Scottish guy, and he now is moving up to Portland, and he had met Holly, he had met Dana, and Dana said, "You've got to talk to this guy, absolutely incredible," and he's going to become a Cobalt Fellow. This is our collaborator for bioregional action, learning, and transformation, of which an HWAS or HOAS student is going to become a fellow. Then talked to Isabel Carlisle, who's the head of the Bioregional Learning Center in South Devon, UK, and they're doing incredible work. We did a learning journey there years ago, and just constantly just staying in touch, and all sorts of collaborative opportunities. And then was on a call with one of our Cobalt Fellows is in Norway. She's doing a GIS and data informatics and bioregioning master's degree out of University of Oslo. And we're trying to shape a master's thesis that would really appeal to her. And actually what we're looking at is Casco Bay and basically how to create a 3D digital twin of the entire bioregion of Casco Bay, both water and land. And it'll be a step towards that. And then finally went over to SMCC because we're planning a bioregional learning journey right here in Casco Bay. And that'll be in August. We'll be launching a community science program around monitoring seagrass meadows here in Casco Bay. And this is a launch of a really wonderful program. And so those who are wanting to join Team Zustra are going to be invited on this 5-day learning journey that includes a look into food systems, wastewater treatment, and its relationship to the health of Casco Bay. And I'll just give you a little bit of a taste of that, literally. We have Barton Seaver, an amazing chef. He's also a National Geographic Explorer in Residence, the only chef in that pantheon. And we're going to do a transect from Mount Washington all the way through Sebago Lake to Portland, off to Cash's Ledge, then off into the Northwest Passage, into the Great Ocean. We're going to have a meal that actually will allow you to have the first course up in the mountains, and then as you go in. So come join us. That'll be August 8th. And then after that came home, and then we drove down here, and here we are. So that's what inspires me every single day. It's doing incredible things.
So you guys can imagine what it's like to have these folks behind UNE North and pushing us forward. And so, you know me and my kind of high levels of energy. It really is a flywheel effect from working with folks like this. I will tell you that one of the greatest meals I've ever had in my life was with Glenn Page in Glasgow. Glenn at the Gannet. And it was this incredibly beautifully locally sourced, and we talked about this very project over that meal. So it's really exciting. So I love, you guys are on the spot. All right, so Abby, kick it off. Have a question for any or all of our panelists. And introduce yourself first. Tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Abby. I'm a freshman marine bio major here at UNE. And all of you guys are incredible. There's no words for it. And I love your passion for everything. And if you don't mind me taking a stab at the earlier question of kind of what inspires the student side of things, because I also feel inspired by you guys now. Admittedly, like, I'm 19, I'm young, I don't have to have everything figured out yet, but for years now, my inspiration has been a little bit selfishly wanting to succeed in a sustainable way on this planet, because growing up, I mean, my whole life, climate change has been a well-known issue by that point. It had been an issue for decades beforehand, but it was really bad by the 2000s and stuff like that. So growing up, it was just, oh, by 2030, these goals have to be met or it's doomsday. And by 2050, these goals have to be met or it's doomsday. And it's like, well, I'm not even going to be 30 in 2030. I'm not even going to be 50 in 2050. And so it was kind of a very, like, my generation, I think, was told, you have to help fix these problems because you're young and you have the energy to do it and you're getting past the problems, but also you're young, you don't know everything, you don't know how to fix it. So admittedly, a little bit selfishly, my inspiration has always kind of been wanting to be able to tackle some of these problems. And even if it's something really as small as starting a community garden in my town and getting like one small set of 4,000 people to be a little bit more sustainable and environmental, that's just something I've always wanted to do.
Thank you, Abby.
Incredible.
Woohoo.
Wonderful.
Excellent. So would either of the two of you like to take a dive at this? A question or an inspiration for you?
Sure. I'm Sam. I'm a sophomore environmental science major here. And I guess what inspires me is I want to be able to look back on my life and say that I had a positive impact on the world. I guess the main example I always think of is my parents sent me to a summer camp on the Cape. It was a nature camp. We went 3 weeks of summer or whatever. And I had loved that place. And as the years went on and it was hit more and more by the rising sea levels, there was more and more impacts like climate change and all that, like the salt marshes started to dry up and more like tags saying like, oh, here's where the sea level is going to be in 2020 and like 2030 or whatever. And that kind of depressed me for a little bit because it's like, I like this place and now in a couple of years, it's going to be gone. So I want to be able to have future generations be able to experience that type of stuff. I want to be able to help in that because like I know that it really formed me into who I am today. And I want other kids to have that sort of inspiration.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Want to give it a shot?
Sure. So, I'm Lauren Hayden, and I'm a grad student here in the marine science or the School of Marine and Environmental Programs now. And I am really glad that I came here tonight. I mostly came because I want to see Dana and because Holly told us about this.
Oh.
It's so nice to see people from business doing positive things because I don't ever hear about that. Everything just seems like
Nobody
such a
does.
mess. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and what you're saying about art and music and theater and all that is so important
Yes.
and inspiring, and everything is just such a wreck everywhere. So that's what's inspiring me. I want to hear more about this project with the eelgrass.
I saw both of you guys were like, bing. So-
Do you dive?
I'm certified.
Good. That's all
I
you
haven't
need.
actually gone in the ocean yet, but yeah. Yeah, right when COVID hit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Are
think
you guys, so you're working with SMCC with this?
Yeah, we have a whole group of universities that we're working with, but we're basing the lunch at SMCC.
That makes
The lunch, and we're having a bioregional learning journey, but each of the nights on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we're gonna have Zostropalooza.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I attended one online Zostropalooza and it seems like it'd be so much more fun in person.
Yeah.
what that is?
yes.
Basically, a bunch of geeks who we nerd out on the power of seagrass meadows. So, okay, imagine below Casco Bay, below the water, there's a habitat that pound for pound does as much for ecosystem service, carbon sequestration, fisheries production as a rainforest does for the avifauna and the other insects, et cetera, in climate and coral reefs. We have it right here, and yet nobody knows about it. Cool. So what we're doing is now putting a lot of eyes and attention and getting inspired people involved because we need to not only understand it, but it's really the canary in the coal mine for how we're doing the land and all the good work that is going on. And we need to connect these things. We're actually really good at seeing through our relative microscopes to separate and sort of pull apart things. We're good at imagining through our telescopes and imagining sort of the far away and where we're going to go in the next planet we might inhabit. But we're really not good at seeing the systems that we're woven into, that we're living within. And so a lot of this work is around re-inhabiting places where we live.
Interesting. Do you guys have any questions, or would you like to any questions, Abby?
I have a question for all of you, but I think it's more directed towards the Colbys and John. how do you, or have you had to face difficulties with wanting to be sustainable and wanting to stay in that kind of environmentally friendly side of work, but then also having to meet the demands of sometimes the building isn't going to be sustainable, sometimes a port isn't going to be good for the water and the ecosystem?
Sure. I mean, we have a constant reminder here in the Gulf. 15 years ago, Hurricane Katrina hit, wiped this facility off the face of the earth. It had a wall of water that was over 28 feet tall. The building I'm currently in, the water was up above the lobby downstairs. The entire terminal was wiped off, and it took $600 million to replace it. So, I mean, we have a constant reminder. We spent hurricane season. This last year was relatively easy. We only had one major one, but the year before there were 6 scares, and we take everyone seriously. So there's a pretty serious protocol you go through if you're anywhere near that cone. And it involves, a lot of time and effort, including evacuating containers and locking down cranes. And most of the time, that one season, it went fine. It was just a drill until the last one in October, which was Zeta, and that hammered the heck out of us. So we do have that constant reminder of it. But I would say, when you talk about sustainability in a business sense, you might want to rephrase it as efficiency. I think it's something that brings you as a professional with something of value to the table. Look, corporations are designed to make money, and that's okay. I mean, capitalism is great. It's good to make money and be successful. And I think a way to be sustainable to your personal values and still advance through your career is really focused on efficiency. So when we market a product, we do what's called an origin and destination analysis. It's where is a product starting from, and where is it going, and how is it getting there, and what's it cost? And if I can figure out a way to do it cheaper than someone else, then I got a pitch to go bring to the table. And that's fundamentally congruent with systems of sustainability.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, John makes a lot of good points. I think from our side, we have a lot of different customers, and they all have different goals, what they might want for their buildings. But more than half of our work is for the federal government. So for people like the General Services Administration, they're the nation's landlords. So many of the courthouses, land port of entries, office buildings that federal agencies occupy, they take care of, build them, they maintain them. The Navy, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Coast Guard. And what's fascinating is that they are by far the most sustainable clients that we have. When we work for private people, they're just not willing usually to put the extra money in to make something sustainable, because there is a cost to it, and the government keeps their buildings for a lot longer typically than
And they face a lot more scrutiny.
They do, and they have very stringent energy codes that you have to meet. And you really have to do serious analysis to show that you're using sustainable products and that you're meeting these very stringent energy codes. And I think one thing they maybe fall down on is that they just don't advertise it. And so I think you should be proud as a taxpayer or a future taxpayer that your money
God willing.
that your money is going towards that, because also a lot of research and development comes out of this too. Like they're actually the ones funding a lot of some these mechanical systems and interesting electrical systems. So
That's also true for profit-making corporations. And I think that there is a certain meme that exists in the world at this moment that if one is a for-profit corporation, it is an a priori operation of evil. When in fact, if you think about where research and development money comes from, when you think about the opportunity to pay people well, to fund philanthropy, to pay attention to things that are incumbent within a corporation's mission. The fact of the matter is, profit is not Uncle Pennybags walking away with sacks of money in the trunk of a car. I mean, the vast majority of corporations are actually quite moral and quite interested in seeking win-win solutions. So I wouldn't fall victim to the idea that every time there is a for-profit corporation involved in enterprise X, that there is built-in skullduggery.
The balance piece is super important. Not every single thing that we all do every day. And believe me, Sarah and I want the greenest designs for our customers with the best materials. Some of them can't afford the highest and best. And so we don't say, well, you're a terrible person, and we walk away from it. We're like, okay, you can get this. We try to show them what the best materials are, and seeking that balance, because they may not even want to do that much. So is it better to get them to do some good or no good? And so seek that balance. And also there's the balance of your place where you are. Where you're working today may not be ideal, but you're still doing good things. I look at myself, I do a lot of mentoring with junior engineers and architects, like, hey, look at it this way, let's look at this way, try to get them to think and broaden their horizon and scope. That's not necessarily, I didn't save 1,000 square feet of carpet with bad VOCs today as my contribution to the sustainable market, but maybe I opened up a junior engineer's eyes to something new that will carry them for their life. That is a good place, that's a good thing that's done. So there's a million things that go into getting something built in the infrastructure. Look at your place and just do really well where you are. Something that Glenn said about the number of things that you do every day. I forgot how you said it exactly, but every one of those you can have a difference and find the good in that difference. I think you'll be really, really happy if you start to look around. We've run into some really, really idealistic folks that have rolled into our shop, and boy, they're just eternally unhappy that every client didn't invest, $400 more a square foot into the greenest of everything. They get disgusted with it instead of realizing, wow, this client's quite a bit greener than a lot. Last thing on the mural that Sarah Emily said is, when the federal government hires us to do a building for them, they mandate LEED silver. A lot of the private folks out there don't mandate LEED silver. Our government mandates it across the board. And you really don't pay that much more for a government building. What you're paying is the oversight, because the government really watches how the buildings get built. And it's funny, you hear about all this waste and everything in the government, and there is, in every industry, there is waste. But I think if you saw what we see at our level of building the GSA and the Corps and everybody else, a lot of folks that really care, and they're building buildings that are lasting for 50, 60, and 70 years. So there's some really good stories out there. They're investing in geothermal. Solar is always an option. Yeah.
But not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. With my
Well played. So we have 5 minutes, and so we have 5 panelists. And what I would like to ask you each in closing is, if you were sitting out here right now, 19, 20 years old, 20s, what piece of advice would you give yourself as your 20-year-old or college-age self? Looking back at it, what would be the piece of advice that you would give yourself? Anybody want to? You're gonna have to ponder.
I'll start. Get out of your comfort zone. Really push yourself. Volunteer and test everything and anything. The more you fall down, the more you learn how to get back up. And that's what's going to help you.
100%. Raise your hand and say, I'll get involved in that. You're going to meet the people that Glenn talked about, which expands your circle of people that you know. Even if you don't think you know everything about it, just raise your hand and get in with a group of people and do some good things. You're never going to be disappointed for doing that.
I would take the opportunity to travel, study abroad, to take a job somewhere else in the summer, even if it's within the United States. There's so many diverse places, and they're just experiences that you can't get unless you're being independent on your own somewhere else.
I would make a lifelong history of reading biographies. I think you learn so much from the life stories of others, and not just famous people, but certainly individuals who have done things in very many areas of tending. I'm reading one, brought this to mind, as I'm reading one by Madeleine Albright, at the moment, who is one of my heroes on earth. And I mean, I've never, well, I guess I've sort of been a diplomat, but I mean, watching her trajectory as an immigrant, a pre-Title IX woman, an individual whose life was marked with many of the things we as women go through in the working environment. I'm so inspired by what I've learned reading about others who have done their own best work. And if you make a habit of really paying attention to what other people have done and doing it through the reading of biographies, I think you will find yourself a richer person.
John Nass, you have the final word, sir.
Well, I have a soon-to-be 17-year-old son, so I guess I've been having this conversation a little bit. You know, the often used line is, "You make your own luck." You know, people might turn around and say, "Oh, you got lucky." Well, I don't know. If you're in the right place to talk to the right person at the right time, or understand something that might interest you, that doesn't necessarily happen by accident, and it's certainly not just luck. It's getting in the right place at the right time.
So I want to thank our panelists for joining us tonight and sharing their journeys. I want to thank the three of you guys for showing up and doing exactly what Kaylin and Glenn were talking about, just showing up.
Yeah.
That's really important. We did record this, so we will be posting this so that other folks can see it. I hope you will send some of your peers to it. I think it was a great evening. And again, these folks are part of UNE. So you can find their information on our UNE North webpage. I'm sure they would enjoy having a conversation with you over a cookie and coffee right now. But thank you guys very much for the first UNE North Career Night. I hope the first of many. So thank you all. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.